In the Navajo Nation Reservation, over 170,000 people live across a vast remote desert. For decades, residents and visitors have reported strange and unexplainable events, lights in the sky, figures that vanish, and encounters with skinwalkers, shape-shifting beings. So many reports came in that the Navajo police created a special paranormal task force to investigate. These are real cases, documented by the task force. Monument Valley is a famous landscape in the USA. The striking rock formations are familiar from numerous Western films and stand as a symbol of the vastness and remoteness of the American Southwest. Today this area lies within the Navajo Nation, a reservation with its own administration and its own police force. For decades, reports of unusual and hard-to-explain incidents have been accumulating from this region. Even in the traditions of the people living there is talk of strange ghostly figures, encounters with unknown beings, and unexplainable events. It is striking that similar reports continue to the present day. Some of these incidents were documented in the book series Strange but True Police Stories. The authors gained insight into reports and statements from police officers who were confronted with such cases. The focus is on events that cannot be clearly explained and that leave even experienced investigators with unanswered questions. What is interesting is that a large portion of these reports come directly from the ranks of the reservation police. So these are not just stories or traditions, but in many cases documented operations and observations by officers on the scene. Within the Navajo police, a special unit has existed for several years to deal precisely with such cases, a so-called Paranormal Task Force. Its establishment was due to an unusually high number of reports that could not be fully explained using conventional approaches. This task force has public contact persons. 2 officers are responsible for providing information on selected cases upon request and offering insight into their work. They are Lieutenant John Dover and Sergeant Milford. Both have decades of experience in police work and have repeatedly been confronted with situations during their careers that, in their assessment, are not easily explainable. In one documented case, an elderly man living in isolation in the remote desert region approached the police. He lived alone in a simple hut there, engaging in small-scale farming, far from other settlements and with almost no contact with the outside world. According to his account, he was awakened one night by an unusual noise. Shortly after, the inside of his home was filled with a bright light that came from outside. The man then left the building armed to investigate the cause. Outside his house, he saw an object coming down from the air and landing close by. Shortly afterwards, several figures came out of the object. They moved across his property slowly and eventually came near his house, without directly interacting with him. After some time, the figures returned to the object, which then rose again and disappeared. However, the key factor for reporting the incident to the police was not only these observations, but the traces that were clearly visible the next day. On the property, a circular burnt patch was found in the ground. At regular intervals around it were 4 distinct impressions, giving the impression that landing legs had rested there. In addition, part of the farm was damaged. The task force officers recorded the incident and documented the traces on site, as in similar cases. The report was forwarded to a responsible federal agency. Soon after, a group of men in black suits appeared at the scene. They examined the site, took photos and then left. No further information or results were shared with the officers. It's not that the officer encounters something truly unexplained every time someone reports a strange incident. Often, the whole matter can be explained in a simple, normal way. But then there are those special reports, the exceptional cases, that are so confusing they eventually led to the creation of this task force. For example, the experience of one family. Through this desert you see in the picture runs a road, the Monument Valley Drive. As long as you don't leave this road, everything is fine. However, other roads branch off from this road, leading deep into the desert, into the middle of nowhere. Anyone unfamiliar with the area who doesn't turn back in time can easily get lost. That's exactly what happened to a family traveling as tourists. They were taking a trip through the Monument Valley and decided to explore a little of the main road. They just wanted to drive a short way into the desert, took a turn off and kept driving further in. To make matters worse, their car broke down. The family was completely unprepared for a stay in the desert, very little water, and the sun was blazing hot. They were completely alone, with no house and no other vehicle far and wide. Fear and despair set in as they felt the extreme heat and loneliness. The parents knew their situation was life-threatening, but saw only the choice between waiting for help or setting out themselves to find a place, a house, or a road to seek rescue. The strain was immense. The family had little experience in the desert, and they quickly reached the end of their strength. Exhaustion, thirst, and the heat made the progress nearly impossible. Yet apparently they were lucky. The hotel owner where they had booked 2 rooms noticed that the room's key was still on the key rack. He remembered a conversation that morning where the family mentioned driving into Monument Valley. Since it happens frequently there that visitors get lost, the owner called the ranger. They immediately began searching for the family. It was night, everyone was exhausted without food and water. The family sat hopeless in the dark when they suddenly heard footsteps. Their hearts were pounding and fear filled them when, in the next moment, a native appeared before them. According to the family, he was dressed very traditionally, like Native Americans from around 200 years ago. Initially, the family was frightened, but slowly they realized he meant them no harm. The Native American indicated they should follow him. With trembling legs and pounding hearts, they followed him, overwhelmed by fear, doubt, but also a glimmer of hope. The Native American led them to a water source. Relief and gratitude flooded through the family as they finally drank enough to satisfy their thirst. The next morning, they heard a helicopter. Relieved, they ran to an open area, waving and shouting, and the pilot spotted them. Their joy and relief were indescribable. They had survived, thanks to the ranger's quick response. At the ranger station, the family reported the nighttime encounter and the water source. The rangers were astonished, speechless, their eyes wide. There is no water source in that area, and when they re-examined the mountain, they found only dry stone and sand. No one could explain where the water came from or who the native was. Such stories occur frequently in this area. According to the officers, there is a kind of top 10 of paranormal observations. In first place are strange lights in the night sky and unidentified flying objects. In second place are encounters with skinwalkers. Skinwalkers originate from Navajo legends, but also appear among other Native American tribes like the Hopi. They are beings that can take both human and animal form. In the legends, they are outlaw shamans or witches who master the art of shape-shifting and sometimes have cannibalistic ambitions. When the paranormal task force is called, many report encountering a skinwalker. However, that doesn't mean these beings intended harm to the person. Another report comes from a police officer from New Mexico who was traveling privately in the Navajo area. He was driving on a country road at about 65 miles per hour, enjoying the landscape which he liked very much. Suddenly, he saw something on the left side outside the driver's window that nearly gave him a shock. A Native American, a man with long black hair and topless, was running past him, even though he himself was traveling over 100 kilometers per hour. There were some bushes along the road. The Native American dropped to the ground behind one of these bushes. Shortly after, the figure transformed into something resembling a coyote that stopped and stood. The officer slammed on the brakes, shocked, got out and looked around. All he could see was the coyote running away. There were no signs of the Native American. Another officer from the same region reported another strange encounter. 2 officers were driving at night on a road through the desert, when suddenly a figure ran out of the darkness into the road, directly into the headlights. Braking was impossible, and both screamed in shock, thinking they would hit the figure, but the car seemed to glide through. And when the driver looked back and the passenger turned around, the figure stood uninjured on the road. a Native American in traditional clothing of a medicine man. The strange thing, such encounters are not isolated cases. A similar thing has happened to another officer from the same area. Although these cases represent only a small part, about 2% of the reservation police work, they are noticeable and unsettle residents. One of the reasons the Paranormal Task Force was established was to make sure people didn't have to face this fear alone. According to the responsible officers, these cases are occasionally reported to the federal police, the FBI. However, there is hardly any public discussion about them, either because it's considered uninteresting or to create the impression that the matter is of no significance. Another interesting fact, the Paranormal Task Force is the only unit that does not receive financial support from the US government, while other police departments and the reservation receive funding. Unfortunately, there is no explanation for why this unit doesn't receive fundings. Still, there are many more stories from this region. The fact is, in this area, unexplained events regularly occur that surprise both population and the officers. People fear the unknown. Often such fears are exaggerated in movies, series, or other performances, making the uncertain seem normalized or even extremely staged. Yet the stories from Monument Valley and the surrounding reservations have been reoccurring for decades, and similar incidents occur in other places as well. They possess a certain degree of credible evidence, whether through eyewitness accounts, documented police cases, or physical traces. Or do you think that it's all not real? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.